Welcome to Let Fear Bounce, the podcast that sheds light on the transformative power of overcoming fear. And dogs and coffee will more than likely creep into our conversations. So join me, Kim Langling, the host of Let Fear Bounce, as I chat with folks from around the world who share their inspirational stories and how they've turned their fear into fuel for a brighter future. You're going to hear from folks just like you and me. People who have navigated challenges and unleashed their personal strength to craft a life filled with fulfillment and joy. So are you ready to be uplifted, inspired, and motivated to conquer your own fear and bounce toward a life that you love? I know that I am. So grab your coffee, sit back, relax, and let's get this show started. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Let Fear Bounce. This is your host, Kim Langling, and I am so happy that you've decided to spend just a small part of your day with myself and my special guest today, Elizabeth Cessna. Now, she is hailing to us from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She is a certified clinical hypnotherapist and a psychotherapist, and she helps folks work through their fears and undesirable habits so they can live a more healthy and happy life. Elizabeth, welcome to Let Fear Bounce.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your having me here.
I've been looking forward to this conversation because I find what you do is fascinating, how you help people with fears and undesirable habits. That's what caught my attention because, of course, the show is called Let Fear Bounce, and we all have fears. Every single one of us have a fear and probably more than likely undesirable habits. So share with me, first off, how is it that you got into this line of work? What is it that brought you in this direction?
Well, I was a psychotherapist and have been for over 30 years. And after a while of dealing with a lot of people's griefs and kind of being stuck, I got specialized training to be a certified clinical hypnotherapist using the Ericksonian method of hypnotherapy. And it's a way of helping people change their perception of experiences and change their perceptions of the way they do things so that they can create new healthy habits and learn how to reinforce those new healthy habits as opposed to constantly reinforcing their undesirable habits, which they have been doing over and over and over again. So that is either through continually doing the same behavior over and over or having the same thought over and over. For example, a thought might be, I really can't do anything right. Now, that came from lots of years of experience in being told you can't do anything right. Or you're making mistakes. So the person takes that into themselves and has that sense about them, they can't do anything right. So anytime they come across a situation that may be difficult or new, their first thought is, I can't do that. I can't do it right. I'll mess it up. Because they have told themselves over and over and over again, I can't do anything right. So using that and recognizing that's just an undesirable behavior that has been reinforced and reinforced and reinforced, we create a new healthy habit and learn how to reinforce it. A new healthy habit might be, and this always comes from the client. The client always describes what a new healthy habit would be for him or her because it's different for each person. So, for an example, the person may say, there's some things that I can't do right, but there are a whole lot more things that I can do just right or good enough. So I'm going to give this a try.
I like that good enough part because so many of us, and I know you know this because you talk to folks every day, the negative self-talk can really hinder you in your life.
I really help people get more comfortable with the concept and the sentence, good enough for right now.
Good enough for right now. Oh, I like that. Good enough for right now. Because no one's perfect.
No. And that's also the basis of procrastination too. because people think if I can't do it perfectly, I won't do it at all. I mean, there are other reasons for procrastination, but this is a big one.
Right.
Perfectionism. If I can't do it right, I'm not even going to try. And that is usually a very unconscious thought. So if they can get more comfortable with the idea of telling themselves, good enough for right now.
So if folks are coming to you and maybe they've never talked to a hypnotherapist or a therapist at all in their life, and they just know something is really, it's just their life is off, it's just off the tracks, everything feels off kilter. They don't feel well, they're depressed or they're anxious. When they come in to see you, how is it that you put them at ease and make them feel comfortable, because they're going to be sharing something, some pretty personal stuff with a stranger. So in your practice, how is it that you make someone feel comfortable in that scenario?
Well, I am very approachable. My office is set up as a very comfortable, small living room. So the whole atmosphere is comfortable. And I start out by asking easy questions so the person gets comfortable kind of answering those questions. And then we lead into, tell me what would help. What one issue would you like to work on now? Because the person will often say, well, I have so many issues. I choose one. Choose one for right now. Because often the healing that you do as a result of our working together will have strong effects on other issues. So talk about the one that's really important to you right now, because we do one issue in 3 sessions. The person knowing that he or she has control over where we start and how we start also puts them at ease. Also knowing that we'll only do 3 sessions, so this is not a lifelong commitment. That amazing work can be done in only 3 sessions. And also, people get the knowledge very quickly that they're far more empowered than they thought they were.
Well, and just finding that out, goodness, because when you feel that way, I mean, I've been in that spot where it feels like everything is completely overwhelming and you're so sunk in it, you don't have an unbiased view of it anymore because you're so sunk in it. But I like how I love how you said, when you're talking to the folks that come in, you make sure that they know that they're in control of where you start.
Always.
They are always in control of where you start. You make it very comfortable and easy for them to talk to by welcoming into, like you said, a little living room. So you're welcoming into a little piece of your home, in a way, and they can just sit, relax, take a deep breath, and you assure them that they are in control of where they start. And they only have to choose one. Don't focus on 15 things that you think are making you feel this way. Focus on that one. That's just, I mean, it's so simple, but when you're in your own swirl, it's not simple to pull yourself out of that. So, to have folks like you out there is, I think, vital, and in 3 sessions, that's the other thing I think that would more than likely make someone feel very comfortable is it, like you said, it's not a lifelong commitment. We will do this in 3 sessions. And if they want to continue, of course, I'm assuming they can.
They can. And sometimes people do. Other times they're so empowered, they're just fine by themselves. And in the case of the hypnotherapy, I teach them how to do self-hypnosis so they can continually work on the issues that we work on together, but by themselves at home.
Are you able to give a small example of something like that you would share with one of your clients for self-hypnosis? Actually, let's explain what self-hypnosis is first to the listeners.
Self-hypnosis is exactly what we do in the office. So that it's a way for the person to get in touch with their unconscious, where all of the answers to their issues are already stored. In their subconscious, in their brain, it's the same thing. You've heard of the mind-body connection. It's connected through the vagus nerve. So all of the answers to people's undesirable habits, their anxieties, their fears, all those answers are already inside of them. So in the 3 sessions together, we discover some of those answers. And once those answers are discovered, then we create tools to use to reinforce those answers and we've created a new healthy habit, and we use those tools to reinforce a new healthy habit. And that's exactly what they do at home, and that's what we're calling self-hypnosis. So they do it.
Interesting. It's very interesting. So in the realm of counseling and hypnotherapy, continuous learning, I'm assuming, is essential for this. So can you discuss or share any recent advancements or new techniques that you might utilize in your practice that have come about in, say, the last 5 or 10 years?
Well, one of the things that I utilize a lot, which is not really talked about, or I mean, other people may be doing it, but it's not talked about. So I feel as though it's something I've discovered because I do EMDR.
EMDR?
EMDR. With EMDR, the person thinks about, in classical EMDR, the person thinks about whatever trauma they had. And it could be any kind of trauma. It could be childhood trauma. It can be a very severe trauma, or it can just be an experience that has really affected their lives. And they think about that trauma on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst. They think about that while I help them move their eyes or their bodies. I use what's called a TheraTapper, which has vibrations. And what that does is, as a person is thinking about that trauma or that experience, and the brain is aware of the vibrations or their eyes movements going back and forth, the brain gets a little confused. And so it tends to separate those neural pathways, for the experience, the smells, the background, all of it, so the person doesn't forget what happened, but the pain, the emotional pain is no longer there. Now, for many people, that's very helpful, and I do that. But for a lot of people, my fear is for that particular person, it may be re-traumatizing. So I have created a new way of doing it, and I call it positively positive EMDR. So instead of taking it from the negative, painful point, we look at it from a positive viewpoint and just help the person change their perception. So, for example, I may have the person see themselves as the director of a movie or a play that's going on in front of them. And as the director, they're sitting way far back in the theater watching it, and they have total control over what's happening. And what is happening is a child, if the director is a woman, then you see the little child going through the trauma. But you are not particularly that child, it's just the child, but it's the trauma that you experience. So you take the child through the trauma at your own speed and in your own way, and stop at the end, and then come back and take it through again. And then as the director, say, okay, what do I need to change here? If, for example, the child had a lot of childhood trauma with a mother who was either an alcoholic or was unkind or emotionally abusive or physically abusive in any way, the child can then imagine that there's a whole room filled with other parents. And so the child can just go in and choose another mother. And so the child takes the new mother and puts it in that situation and takes the original mother out and then observes what that situation might be like, if the situation even exists at all with a new mother, because that situation might not exist. So with the new mother, what kind of situation would you like to have exist? Play that back one more time and see if any changes need to be made. It may be in the atmosphere, it may be in the room, it could be anything, because the director can make any changes they want to make.
And the entire time,
Yes,
I was just going to say, the entire time, you are the director sitting at the back of the theater
with total control.
With total control of how this scenario plays out. Do you find that folks that are more on the creative side that works better for? Or is there a certain type of person that because some people it might not work for. I'm just assuming. I don't know. So share a little bit about that.
It'll work for almost anybody. A really creative visual person might have an easier time with it initially, but after working with it, anybody can do it. Because also, after they have the movie or the play as they want to have it, that's the new memory that is created, then they see themselves as themselves walking down to the stage and going up to the child and knowing that they, as an adult, have learned a lot. They have gained so many skills of ways of coping and relating and learned how to be kind. So they bring a lot to themselves as an adult, and they want to share that with this child who is hurting. So they can go and connect with that child any way they want to, either like E.T., finger to finger, right, or grabbing hands, any way they want to, and picture all of their strengths, all their kindness, all their knowledge going from them into this child. And then once you have the sense that the child has absorbed all that, giving the child a major hug.
And what a beautiful, now, because I'm very visual. Yes. So I can picture that exactly in my head. And it's interesting how you explained that whole process there. A few years ago, I had put out a writing contest through my website, and it was called Write a Letter to Your 5-Year-Old Self.
Ah.
And I did not really give a whole lot of guidance or guidelines on it, but without fail, every single submission that I received was about the adult version looking back and talking to their 5-year-old self and explaining life is going to be so hard when you're this age and this is going to happen, but you make it and you get, and it was all about, looking back at their 5-year-old without, and I didn't give any guidance. I just said, right, write a letter. Every letter was the adult version talking to their 5-year-old self that had experienced some major trauma without fail. Right. And they were beautiful, beautiful, heart-wrenching letters. They were hard to read. A couple of them were very hard to read because they hit home for myself. And I did, I had written one to my own self as an exercise, but it was, it was beautiful. And the feedback that I got from the folks, and it was all women who participated and reached out, but the feedback that I received just from them saying, wow, I didn't think I'd be able to do that. Or, wow, that was such a great thing for me to do. It was really, really hard. And I cried the whole time, but I felt so much better after. So as you were explaining your practice, I was sitting there picturing these women writing their letters to their 5-year-old self. How beautiful, because we all carry stuff.
Absolutely.
We all carry stuff. I carry my own. People that, if anyone's listened to this show more than once, they've heard me talk a little bit about what I carry, and it is helpful. There's so many different ways. And I love how your practice offers different, like you've got the EMDR. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, correct.
You've got EMDR. You also provide Ericksonian Hypnotherapy. So on the psychotherapy part, what does that entail?
Well, it is so personalized to each person. So it's hard to say, even give you a specific example. But in most cases, it's people discovering parts of themselves that they really like. Because often people come in not liking themselves for a lot of reasons or being uncomfortable with themselves. And so to discover so many strengths and so many positive things about themselves, it's really eye-opening, and it changes their whole self-perception.
I love how you just said they can discover a part of themselves that they really like. You help them to discover a part of themselves that they really like.
Everything I do in my practice, whether it's the hypnotherapy or the counseling, is all positive and future oriented.
Do you have folks that come in like typical? Is it, and you might not, it might just be different all the time, but is there, is it anxiety or is it addiction or
I specialize in anxiety, but anxiety can cover a lot of things.
yeah.
It might cover some addiction issues. It may very well cover relationship issues. It can cover lots of things. So the whole category of anxiety is multifaceted.
Right. It's a big umbrella.
Right. And I certainly work with all kinds of anxiety.
Before you started doing all of this, what is it in your heart that made you want to go this direction in life, to be a counselor?
Oh, let me think about that.
You've been doing it a while.
Yeah, I have always been somebody who likes to support people as they discover themselves. For example, for a long time, I worked with adoption, private adoption, and I did it in a way that I worked with couples so they could find a birth mother, a pregnant woman who was not yet ready to parent. And most of these people were in their 20s as opposed to teenagers. So I help people discover these birth mothers who wanted to place a baby with them, but I supported them as they figured out how to do this, how to network, how to work with other couples, and supporting each other in doing it. So I have always been somebody who wants to be the supporter as people make their own discoveries and have their own control about the way they do things, as opposed to having the power sitting back and doing something for somebody. Or
as you were talking, I just realized that you actually you counsel for infertility issues as well, correct?
I do a lot, because infertility is very painful for a couple, emotionally, financially, and physically. And usually with infertility, after 6 months, first thing that goes right down the tubes is any pleasure and lovemaking. The second thing that goes down the tubes, just right along with that, is communication. So they may have been able to communicate really well up to this point, but infertility is so painful. And often it's more painful to one person than another. And they develop all kinds of emotional defenses. And so communication goes right down the tubes. So infertility counseling is really important for people. And then if they're dealing with, it's things like surrogacy, donor sperm, donor eggs, IVF, any of those issues are really complicated and expensive, and really puts a major taxing aspect on the person's and on the couple's relationship, if it is a couple. And same is true if it's a woman who is using donor sperm and doesn't have a partner.
I can't even imagine the just the mental toll alone
It
that
is.
it would take. I feel for those folks. I do truly feel for those folks.
It's 1 out of 5 couples, by the way. 20% of the population deals with infertility.
Wow, what a statistic. I did not know that.
And that's been true for the last 30 years.
My goodness, that's a lot. Wow.
It is.
That is a lot. Well, you cover so much. I mean, so what, in your practice, you cover a wide variety of things, all under that same umbrella, though, and you've been practicing for, you said, over 35 years now.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How amazing. How just for the heck of it, how many people do you think that you've seen? That I'm just tossing that out there.
Thousands. I truly don't have any idea.
Yeah.
But in thinking about it, it's in the thousands.
And just think, though, all of that you're doing, which is nothing but good. There's nothing negative. It's all positively positive. But all of that, helping those folks, and they in turn more than likely became slightly more empathetic to people that are going through the same thing they went through. So all of those people that you've helped more than likely are causing their own little ripples of kindness out there. What a beautiful picture.
And here's a really interesting experience that I had. One couple that I worked with adopted 3 children that I helped adopt. Their son recently got married, and he's 30. And I'm also an ordained minister. So I officiated at the wedding of Nick, who is the son, and his now wife. And it was a wonderful experience. So it went full circle.
Yes. How amazing. And see, so the name of the show is Let Fear Bounce, tossing out nuggets of hope. So for over 35 years, you've been tossing out nuggets of hope.
That's right.
And that's just one example of how it all came around, to finish out that circle, that you helped those folks adopt a child, and here he is, and you married him.
Yes.
Or you officiated at his marriage. You didn't marry him.
That's right. I officiated.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Wow. Elizabeth, thank you so much for being my guest on Let Fear Bounce. This has been truly enlightening, and it's a blessing to know that people like you are out there, because you're doing this with your heart, and you've been doing it for decades. And all of the people that you've, generations now, obviously.
That's right.
Yeah, generations. How amazing. How amazing. So I hope that you keep on keeping on doing what you're doing.
And so thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this experience.
Wonderful. I am glad. And folks out there listening, Elizabeth is based in Pittsburgh. Her website and her contact information will all be in the description notes, as well as in the description on the YouTube channel. So you can listen into this on any of your normal platforms for listening to podcasts, as well as on my YouTube channel, simply called Let Fear Bounce. All of her stuff will be in the description. But if you want to give her a call, something that you heard today intrigued you, or you feel that you might be able to look into a little bit deeper, you might be dealing with some of the things that she mentioned, you can give her a call at 412-366-4929. Everyone out there, thank you so much for spending just a small part of your day with myself and my special guest today, Elizabeth Cessna. She is a certified clinical hypnotherapist and a psychotherapist. Everyday Hypnotherapy is the name of her business, folks. So check her out. Once again, everybody, thanks so much for tuning in. Everybody out there, this is Kim Langling, your host of Let Fear Bounce. Be well, stay well, and be blessed. Thanks so much for joining me on Let Fear Bounce this week. New episodes upload each Wednesday, folks, so be sure that you subscribe on one of your favorite platforms that you listen on. Also, we're on YouTube, so hop on over to YouTube, folks, and subscribe there. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you. You are amazing. Have a beautiful day. Everybody be well, stay well, and be blessed.